This is always the interesting part of it. Okay. Hey there, I'm Asha Tomlinson with CBC Marketplace. Welcome to our Facebook Live. We're here in the CBC atrium. We've got everything set up, and I'm sure you've heard the news by now about Aeroplan and Air Canada divorcing, if you will, or parting ways as of 2020, the surprise announcement made earlier. And there are just so many questions for the 5 million members with Aeroplan about what this means. So far we hear it is business as usual, but we've got our expert here again. We talked about air miles months ago, and now we're here talking about Aeroplan. Consumer advocate and Toronto Star columnist Ellen Roseman. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Asha.
So send us your questions on Facebook. We will get to them as fast as we can. But of course, first we want to get the lowdown. We want to break down what this means with this Aeroplan and Air Canada, and of course the company that owns Aeroplan, Aimia, what this means for the members now that they're going to no longer be together.
Yes, I wish we had more details. There seemed to be a bit of a conflict between the two sides. One said that you can still use your Aeroplan points to redeem Air Canada flights after 2020, but you can't use them for partners of Air Canada in the Star Alliance.
Right.
But then the other side said, maybe that's not true. We're still going to look around. I guess that's Aimia. They're not sure if they want to continue the association with Air Canada if they're not going to be, if they're going to be competing with Air Canada. From the members' point of view, they would like to be able to get Star Alliance flights because there are no fuel surcharges added.
And that's like
as part of the free ticket.
United, Air China, I believe. Those are all Star Alliance partners.
Right. Also, if you're taking a big trip around the world, which a lot of us fantasize to do with our points, the longer we hold on to them, you want to be able to use other airlines and not just use Air Canada because that limits you. So it looks like there will be less of a future for these round-the-world travelers who are hoping to have perfect freedom to use their points as they liked. And for all of us, it's a good message that you got to use these points quickly because if you don't, things change.
And I'm glad we're talking about that. That is the number one question. And in fact, we have one from Paul Crows who asked that. I mean, my dad called me up and said, should I burn all my miles right now? I have a colleague who called and, they're asking, what do we do with this announcement? Do we just book that dream trip right now? So Paul Crows says, what if I have miles left over by 2020? Do I lose them all?
No. Aimia is still going to run a loyalty program, and it's still going to have partners. It does already, SO and Home Hardware. Those are the two that I know the best.
For sure.
And it's still going to require you to stay active. And if you're not active by using your points for things like SO Gas or Home Hardware purchases, you're going to lose them within a year, even though Ontario passed legislation that says that points can't become expired,
right.
But they can be expired for inactivity. So Aimia will be looking for new partners, and Air Canada will also be looking for partners. So there'll be a lot of competition, and that could mean a good deal for those of us who want to move around. But for those who stay with Aimia, they won't lose their points. They will just have fewer of the current options to use their points and more new options.
And just to clarify as well, Air Canada has announced that it will launch its own rewards program, possibly rewarding a lot of the frequent flyers. I mean, Air Canada owned Aeroplan in the very beginning back in the 80s, so it's almost like it's returning to its roots. We don't know much about this rewards program, but apparently we'll find out more in September. I do have a question here from Hardy Calbrilla, who says, so if I've already bought a ticket for August with Aeroplan points, is the ticket good?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, we still have 3 full years until this all kicks in, and nothing's going to happen during that time to your existing points and your existing trips and all the plans that you have for using those points in those 3 years.
Garth Karen says, or Karan says, just booked my trip for 2018. Good job. Can you tell us where you're going, Garth? Done. We'll stay with Aeroplan, he says, until the change. Aeroplan should have never been sold by Air Canada in the first place. And this is sort of the history of it, right? So Air Canada owned Aeroplan in '84, and then slowly but surely, up until 2008, sort of, they started to separate a bit in terms of the stakes and the ownership,
Yeah.
and then altogether left the Aeroplan program.
I
Air
wanna
Canada
make
did
a
in
point
2008.
about what's going on. It turned out that as somebody who follows complaints about airline loyalty programs, it all started happening before Air Canada spun off AMIA, which wasn't called AMIA then, on the stock exchange. And once they're on a stock exchange, once they're publicly listed and traded, it's all about gaining new customers, and every quarter, everybody's looking at what's going on this quarter. So it's all short-term thinking. And here, as loyalty plan customers, we're in terms of long-term. We're thinking about, 20 years from now when we retire, or 15 years ago from now when we're taking our family on a big cruise or something like that. So we're not looking at short-term results, but the analysts are, and the whole game now is dictated by what the stock market thinks of these stocks.
Right.
And Air Canada stock probably will get a big increase.
Well,
now
here's the
that
thing,
this
it
happened.
did.
Yes.
When the news was announced yesterday, Air Miles stocks went through the roof, and in fact, Amia's stock went down.
And I just checked it,
yeah.
it's come up a little bit, but hardly anything. And
10-year high for Air Canada, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
TD and CIBC both have had smaller decreases because they're linked to Aeroplan with their credit cards. And TD just bought it. In 2014, most of the credit card business was with CIBC, and they lost it to TD.
And the thing is, we talked about this when we did our Air Miles Facebook Live. A lot of people question reward programs in general. Is it really worth it? I have one question from Lachlan who says, PC Plus is my favorite, Lachlan Holmes, by the way. I earn points much faster with them compared to Air Miles and Aeroplan. I asked you this before, I'm gonna ask you again. What is the best reward program to be a part of?
Well, it all depends on you and your own likings. I find a lot of people are getting so fed up with these loyalty plans changing the rules that they say, forget any kind of a plan, I'm just gonna get a card that gives me cash back.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of cashback cards around, and you get the money pretty quickly. But then you find Tangerine, for example, had one of the best cashback cards, and within a year they changed their rules so that you could still get 2% rewards on several categories, but on the other categories, what used to be a 1% reward is now a 0.5% reward. So they weakened it, and it only took them less than a year, obviously because they weren't making money, and they also increased a fee that they charge on U.S. foreign exchange.
Not sure what that beeping is, but try to get past it, guys. Let's move on. Continue.
Okay. So it all goes to show that as customers and collectors of these points, we're not the priority. They talk about loyalty, but they're just loyal to us. They really are looking for business. They're looking for stock appreciation. They're looking for executive bonuses. It's all very short term, and none of it really relates to our satisfaction. So we have to consider that as well. And I think you're probably better off getting the rebates because they're paid once a year, and then you know that you're getting cash in hand. If you're signing up for points that you've collected for years and years, like with Air Miles, people had collected them since 1991. That's a long, long time, and some people had never redeemed them before.
That's a nice segue into Vieira Vorta's question. Is Air Miles a scam? How do you answer that one, Ellen? I don't know. The politically correct way.
I would say that it's not a scam because people can redeem their points for trips and for merchandise, but the
It's a lot
last
harder to do it.
scandal involving the way they tried to make the points expire and did not actively communicate with members, hoping that they'd overlook it and maybe they'd lose all their points by accident, and the way they didn't even communicate with the media made me lose confidence in the management of this company.
Yeah.
And then after the dust had settled and they'd backtrack on the plan to make points expire, now we find out that they had fraud issues, and the cash rewards, which you could use in stores, have been limited to $50.
Yeah.
Daily.
Yeah.
And then one person who went in to buy with $50 was told he had to do it in $10 increments for a $50
geez.
purchase. So that was just a real pain. And what is a loyalty plan? Well, we think of it as a way to enable us to have nice rewards, but it's really a way for companies to collect data about our purchasing patterns and then sell that data to their partners. So it's really just a marketing program for businesses, which is all behind the scenes. We don't know what's going on. And while we're giving them our data, we're trusting that they're using our data responsibly and safely and avoiding being hacked. And we find out through the problems with PC Financial and Air Miles that their security, in regards to their data is not as desired, which is leading to cutbacks that affect us as collectors.
It leaves one wondering, what are the benefits? Does it benefit us? But we have so many questions coming in from Mohammed, Zatoun, Shelley, Nancy. We will get to you, don't you worry. But let's start with Mohammed Adil Khan, who says EMEA outsources whole IT environment to HPE. Due to that reason, they are not doing well. They have a lot of outage in 1 year, and that's the reason as well. Any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, I certainly found that when the Air Miles scandal blew up, it was kind of like July 1st of last year. And that was only because the media kept saying, where's the big announcement to collectors that they need to use Air Miles before the end of the year? So because of that media push, everybody was calling Air Miles. Then Air Miles said you can't call. They disallowed any calls. Then they were trying to send emails to Air Miles and they weren't getting anywhere. So it was very difficult for people to get in touch, and it may have been because of outsourcing. I don't really care what the reason was. Right. It was just very hard for people to communicate. And that shouldn't be. If you've got 11 million members, as Air Miles said that they did, it's probably a lot lower now, they should be making it easy for you to communicate and not making it harder.
And I believe that Mohammed also is mentioning that EMEA, that owns Aeroplan, does that too, outsources the IT.
Interesting. I think a lot of companies do. The company I work for outsources it as well. They say that it gives them the ability to answer calls 24/7 and to deal with people who are outside the country. I don't think that the outsourcing is the issue. I think it's usually the staffing. Air Miles did admit that they weren't staffed up for the level of calls and that they had to hire more people.
Yeah, apparently. It'll be interesting if any of you who are watching this have had problems getting into either Air Miles or Aeroplan, if you find that, calling in works. Shelley Wood says, usually you pay for premium cards. Some are free but don't accumulate as well. Other rewards are free cards, but you get what you pay for.
Well, a lot of these cards do have annual fees, but I know that if you go online and you look for the best rewards credit card, just Google that, you come up with a lot of sites that tell you about bonus rewards that you get when you sign up. So the key is, I was talking about the stock market being short-term, you should be short-term too. Sign up for the card, get all the bonuses in the first year, and then by the time you have to pay the fee in the second year, because they'll waive the fee in the first year, maybe time to move on. And this works if you have good credit rating and you're paying your bills on time. If you stop paying the bills on time, then it can hurt your credit rating and your credit score. But a lot of people are just moving from one to the other, just getting the great deals in the first year, hoping to get them in the second deal. You can also negotiate with these companies. If you call them and say, I don't feel like paying the fee, and there's a lot of free cards I could move to, they'll often say, okay, we'd like you to keep around as a customer. We'll give you a no fee for the second year. And maybe if you do it again, you can get it again.
Really?
So yeah, a lot
That's
of banks
a good tip.
are all about keeping their customers. Obviously they want to acquire new ones, but they don't want to lose the existing ones either.
I'm glad you talked about banks, because that gets us right into Nancy Dowdle, who asked, what is the difference from getting points on any credit card as just getting points from Air Canada itself or Air Miles?
The credit cards usually allow you to collect points more quickly.
Yes.
Because you can use them on all your spending. They often have a higher value for the points. You can still do it. Like Air Miles has a lot of people who don't have a credit card who just use the card in the stores and just collect it that way. But because credit cards want to be able to charge an annual fee, they will give you a quicker way to accumulate and redeem your points.
Do you think this will affect the banks that are connected to Aeroplan, who promote Aeroplan?
I think definitely they will. They have 3 different financial institutions. One is American Express, which gives you gold card rewards, but you can convert those gold card reward points to Aeroplan points one-on-one at the time you're about to travel. So apparently that deal is up in 2018, so American Express may be moving on. So if you have the American Express Gold Card, which is the one associated with Aeroplan, maybe you might start thinking about, do you want to keep that? The other 2 are CIBC, which was the original credit card for Aeroplan, and they lost most of that business to TD in 2014. TD is pretty new to Aeroplan, and they must be feeling a little bit betrayed because within 2 years, they're finding out that Aeroplan is going to be quite a different program.
And we'll dive into that soon too, to talk about what kind of program you think it will be in the future. But just to recap, I'm Asha Tomlinson with CBC Marketplace, and I'm joined here by Ellen Roseman, a consumer advocate, Toronto Star columnist. We're talking about that big news yesterday, I'm sure you've heard by now, Aeroplan and Air Canada parting ways as of 2020. So we're talking about what each program will look like, because Air Canada says it will be launching its own flight rewards program. And then we're just talking in general about loyalty programs, what they mean for us, the consumer, and whether they benefit us, the most bang for your buck, of course. PM Morgan asked this. We're taking your questions, so keep sending them in. Who is going to keep my account information? I use my Aeroplan number to sign into Air Canada's website. I think for now, I think it's safe to say it's business as usual.
For 3 years.
But it's still unclear what will happen once Air Canada launches its own program, how that's going to play out. Because I know you can't transfer, once 2020 comes, you can't transfer your Aeroplan miles to Air Canada. You can no longer do that. You may be able to redeem some old points, I believe.
Another issue,
but it's all unclear at this point.
Another issue too is that people think, oh, I'm an Aeroplan member, so that gives me more sway with Air Canada. Because if you have a problem with Air Canada, in my experience, they're very difficult to communicate with. They don't listen, they don't respond quickly. If you have your luggage lost, you're talking to India, and you can't get through to anybody. And sometimes you think, well, I'm a big Aeroplan collector, that'll help me with Air Canada, but that will no longer be any kind of a bargaining chip later on, because they won't be connected. Even though they haven't been connected for a while, Aeroplan was still an offshoot of Air Canada.
Well, two things I'm hearing is, one, Air Canada will reward frequent flyers quite nicely with the new program. So we hear the speculation. And then two, that Aeroplan may now join forces with WestJet, and then you're going to see a competing airline on a higher level. So I'm not sure if that's true. Again, all speculation, but that's sort of what I'm hearing.
And Porter Airlines too, they developed their own loyalty plan, but they're not connected with any other airlines. So maybe they're going to aggregate some of the non-Air Canada Canadian domestic airlines.
Anything could happen at this point. Okay, George Henderson asks, I have Shopper's card, so the Optimum card. I have one of those. Is this the best option for prescription points?
No, they don't give Optimum points for prescriptions.
I was going to say, I don't think I've been able to redeem.
It's just for the stuff that's on the shelves. And it's a good program, but like many of the loyalty programs, you have to remember, they can take away your points for inactivity. And if you die and your spouse thinks they're going to inherit the points, they don't. They make the points die with the member. The only way to get around it usually is to find out from your spouse what their password is and get into the account beforehand.
Yeah. I know what that beeping is, by the way, in case people are wondering who are watching us. So usually if you go in to the doors of CBC and you don't do it in time, or you do something wrong, it beeps. So that's what it is. And the doors are right behind us. Just letting you know behind the scenes what's happening. There you go, see? Right down there, there's security, and the doors are right behind there. So sometimes, I know I've done this, if two people go through, you're not supposed to. You have to use your pass card, and then it beeps. Yeah. Just giving you a little information.
Like we might as well be at an airport, right? Airports are full of activity, so the lobby of the CBC feels like it. Yeah.
Okay, Deborah Holden says, I collect AMX membership rewards and then combine them with my TD Aeroplan rewards when I want to travel. Should I still do this?
Amex, you mean American Express?
Yeah, well, she says Amex, so I'm assuming that's Amex.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Well, definitely it's good to combine them, but in 3 years, it's still not clear. The announcement had to be made because, as I was saying, both companies are on the stock market, and the stock market is quite regulated in terms of releasing the news. So they released the news before they really knew what the new programs would be all about. Right. I think it was a big surprise that the talks that had been going on for a while between Air Canada and EMEA had broken down, and then they decided Air Canada will go its own way. And Air Canada is doing this, I think, because they could see that EMEA was making money and Air Canada was not making the money that they hoped to be making out of this, and they hope that they can increase their profits by running their own airline program. The other issue is, of course, that it used to be that you would get a free flight. And people know that the free flight comes with taxes, fees, surcharges, by the time you add up all of these things, it's not worthwhile. You'll be paying as much in all those taxes, fees, and surcharges for a local flight as you would if you just booked the flight. And if you book the flight smartly, you're going to pay less.
Yeah.
So you're forced to save your points for longer trips because of all these extra charges you have to pay. Maybe Air Canada's program will eliminate those extra charges.
Maybe.
And a lot of the programs now will let you use your points to pay for those extra charges. So you still end up not putting money out of pocket. But when you're taking that money out of pocket, you kind of wonder, what's the point?
Yeah, for sure. Ryan J. asks via YouTube, what is your opinion on the WestJet card? I'm not too familiar with the WestJet card.
It's fairly new.
Yeah.
But I do prefer WestJet in terms of customer service. I see from the Canadian Transportation Agency, which runs an airline passenger complaint program, their complaints about WestJet are a fraction of Air Canada's, even if after you account for traffic. When I send complaints there, they answer them within an hour. When I send complaints to Air Canada, I don't even hear anything. So WestJet definitely works harder at customer service and trying to keep customers happy. So I imagine their points program, they had thought it out. They didn't introduce it for a long time. It's probably pretty good, and I will look at it.
And it should be interesting to see if Air Canada will try and match or best it. You know, maybe they'll see the model and try to do something else that may benefit the consumer, because that's what it should be all about anyway.
Should be all about.
Heidi Penny asks, what reward cards would you recommend? And let's name names if you don't mind. Let's talk about the reward programs and which one really are the best.
In surveys that I've seen, the American Express Gold Rewards plan is seen as one of the best because of the fact that you can accumulate the points. But then when the people recommend them after doing all the research, there's a lot of people who say Amex is not accepted at many stores that they patronize. So that is a limitation. Many merchants don't want to take it. It used to be much more expensive. These days, the premium reward cards are just as expensive as Amex, but a lot of people feel that Amex is just not as respected. So what else is there? The Tangerine one is still okay, but not as good as it was. And there are a lot of cashback cards, and you can compare them fairly easily. There are sites that do it. There's one called Rewards Card Canada, which keeps looking at them every year and trying to decide which is best. And I think what we have to do is forget about loyalty to our own card. I know it's a pain sometimes to switch credit cards, because if you forget about all the bills that you're paying every month with your credit card and then you don't transfer them to the new card, you can miss paying it. And if it happens to be car insurance or home insurance, if you miss a payment or two, they blackball you. You're not only not a customer of the home insurance company anymore or the car insurance company, but when you go out to look for other insurance, you're seen as a high-risk customer. So you have to make sure that those monthly bills are paid regularly, even if you switch your cards.
Could really affect your credit. Yeah. Let's talk about any tips in terms of reward programs and how to really redeem the most.
Well, like I was saying, if you're finding that reward card programs are just not what you thought they were, look for a cash rebate card, a money-back card. Costco has one. Now, Costco is interesting because they used to take American Express. That was the only credit card they had. They've since switched it to Capital One. But that card pays you an annual rebate once a year, usually in January, and you can use it for anything in the store. So that's pretty good. If you're always shopping at Costco and if you have your eye on something that's rather expensive, then you can take those points and do it. And at least they force you to be short-term in cashing in those rewards, because waiting too long, hoarding your points, thinking that one day you're going to get this fabulous dream trip or whatever it is that you plan to do. There was another example. A lot of credit cards teamed up with, one was GM and one was Ford, and you could use it to buy a new car. Now, that's a great idea because new cars cost a lot. You can use those points to help cut the cost of a new car.
Where do I sign up?
Then both the credit card companies that were involved with GM and Ford decided that's not a great deal. I think one of them was switched to a different card company, and it also decided it wasn't a great deal, so they're all pretty well defunct. I think the people who are collecting the points still have a little bit of time to use their points, but these programs don't last. They just don't last because of all the shopping around that the card companies do with the partners.
I'm going to get into all these questions. I just have one more on that note. Is it good to hoard your points? I think about, say, Starbucks. Sometimes you'll have those rewards and you don't have to redeem them. You just keep collecting and hoping that, it'll get you something really nice. I mean, I think you have to redeem with Starbucks one drink at a time or one item at a time.
I have a Starbucks card, and they have told me that my points will go extinct after a certain time.
Yeah, and then there's Optimum, which if you don't, how they'll tell you have this many points, you could get $20 off your purchase. But if you wait, you could get $60, $80 off. Is it better to hoard?
I'd say that hoard for maximum 3 years, maybe less.
Okay.
Because for many of us, it's not top of mind. We know we're collecting the points. We haven't much paid attention. We think it's there in the future. It's like socking the money under the mattress and then never lifting the mattress ever to see that they're there, and then you forget about them. Or or Canada Savings Bonds. A lot of people used to do that. They put the Canada Savings Bond in the bank and then forget that after a few years, Canada Savings Bonds stop paying interest. Now they're gone completely. The government's eliminated them. But the big deal for consumers these days is you have to pay attention, because these companies are not going to pick up the phone and tell you, oh, we're changing things, and after January 1st, you can't use this anymore. They're going to expect you to go online and go to their website and log in and find your password, and you have to be really organized and keep records of your password and go online on a regular basis and see what's happening. And they can take away stuff before you even realize they've done it. So it's up to you, because when you complain, they'll say, oh, we told you. But how did they tell you? They don't send you an email. They don't send you a letter in the mail, God forbid, because it's very expensive to send letters in the mail. They tell you online once you've logged into the program.
That was a great description of the money under the mattress. I know my grandmother used to do that. It gave me a wonderful nostalgic visual. James Mann asks, what will happen with banks who have credit cards with Aeroplan?
Well, right now we're seeing that their stock prices are a little bit affected by this, because apparently CIBC only has 3% of its earnings per share with Aeroplan, but that's still pretty good. CIBC kept all their most loyal Aeroplan customers, and I have one of those cards. TD got maybe 80 or 90% of the rest of the Aeroplan customers. I think they're still all trying to figure it out too. They have 3 years in which to decide, do I stay with Aeroplan? I want to see what's going on. How's Aeroplan going to replace the Air Canada business or the Star Alliance business? And maybe they're going to be shopping for new partners as well.
For sure.
So it could be a good time, because alliances will be changing, and that will mean that the customer will have more choice. But it's also a time when you have to look very carefully and see what's going on, and not just rest and think things will work themselves out, because they may not work themselves out to your benefit.
You have 3 years to decide whether you're going to stay with Aeroplan, switch to Air Canada. That leads us into Lachlan Holmes' question. Do you think the new Air Canada program will be earned by flights only, or a combination of flights and everyday purchases? It's up in the air.
Yeah, I don't think that it will be flights only. Nobody has taken that route for a long, long time. They profit by having more partners. Aeroplan also had a thing where if you couldn't use the points at all, you could donate to charity. And they found that the charitable donations was a big deal for many customers, because they only had a small amount of points and they didn't know what to do with them. You would not get a charitable donation for your points with Airplan, but with Air Miles, they worked out a way where you could get a credit to use on your taxes for charitable donation of points. So these are all options. I don't think that an airline-only program would be that attractive. People want choices.
Colleen Zirk asked this, and I know that a lot of people are saying burn your miles up in the next 3 years because you just don't know what's going to happen. Colleen wants to know, will I have to fly before the contract is up, or just book my flight? Good question.
Good question. I think with Air Miles, they just said you had to book your flight.
Right.
You didn't have to take the trip before the deadline for expiry. So they'll give you some leeway. So just being able to book before 2020, I'm not even sure what the month
2020.
is.
Mid-2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as long as you've booked by then, you should be okay.
But make sure to ask questions if you're on the phone, or if you're able to do a live online chat. Make sure you know what's what and that they tell you. So be inquisitive. Danny Elaine wants to point out, and this is interesting, we were talking about optimum points and whether you can redeem them off of your prescription purchases. Danny says in New Brunswick you get optimum points on full value of prescriptions.
Okay, it obviously depends on the province, because pharmaceuticals are regulated province by province. So in Ontario, you can't.
There you go, all cleared up. Maris Liu asks, is it possible that Air Canada can devalue Aeroplan points before or after 2020 to encourage people to jump to their frequent flyer program?
Good question. It's really AMIA that is in charge of Aeroplan points, so I don't think they're going to devalue. They're going to be doing everything they can to keep their customers because their stock is down 50 to 60%, and they have to please the customer. And I don't know how much control Air Canada will have over these Aeroplan points because they're separate companies.
Courtney Anderson talking about Air Miles, which you and I know so well. I use Air Miles, but I haven't really been able to find things I like on the site. That, you are not alone. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, when people felt this deadline breathing down their neck last fall, they found that much of the merchandise that they wanted was unavailable, that they were shown things on the site that they thought they could get, and then when they tried to get them, they were told that it wasn't really accessible in their account. So I'd say that the golden age of loyalty programs may be behind us. You know, they started out great. Most of them are 20 or 30 years old, and technology is disrupting everything pretty quickly, and maybe there'll be something new that pops up that will be way more rewarding. So they just can't count on keeping us around, that we're going to move. And that's why I think it's always good. If you have, say, over 100,000 points sitting in your account, start using them. You don't have to burn them all, but start using them and trying to find things, gifts, your annual, holiday purchases. Try to use them as much as you can. And maybe not collect too many as well, or sign up for a new program where you're starting to collect in a new program.
Times are changing. Heather Martell Thompson, staying on the Air Miles topic, says Air Miles has always worked for us, but you need to invest time in learning how the program works. Look for bonus miles, she says, and we have had no issues redeeming for hotel stays. I kind of think that, it's to each their own, because I mean, we've heard the complete opposite. I mean, we did our full investigation on it, that it's just really, really hard to redeem rewards and, stuff that you want.
Yeah. And I also get complaints sometimes if you use your points for travel and then the travel plans fall through, it's very hard to get your points back.
Yeah, right.
Unlike a credit or a refund. So, yeah.
And there's been a lot of devaluation as well with Air Miles, and so it's costing more to get these rewards.
Yes, they did say after they had to kill the expiry plan that they would devalue the points, and they have done it selectively. They haven't done it on everything, but it has hit people who travel.
Yeah, for sure. Mark L. asks, what do you think of RBC's rewards program, using it for travel?
Absolutely, you can do it. Is that the Avion program? They promote that a lot. Avion was one of the first to say, we're totally flexible. We can use it for any airlines, any hotels, any car rentals. That's what you want as a traveler. You don't want to feel that you're being streamed to one particular company. And, the flexibility is what's important. And I expect to see companies like RBC advertising more heavily because they see this as a great opportunity to scoop up customers from Aeroplan.
So this may be the time to shop around, for sure, to see if you can get, the best program because of this sort of uncertainty around things. PM Ronnie asked via YouTube, what about gas point cards like Petro Points, Petro Canada? I have to say I used to have a card because I was driving a lot from Windsor to Toronto, so I was filling up a lot. And it took me a long time just to get a bottle of water. Like, I don't know. Is it worth it?
I'd say that there's other ways to get them, like in Loblaws, they used to give you a little thing to redeem at Petro Canada or Esso every time you went shopping. They were dated, mind you, but they offered a fairly big discount.
Did you get Pepsi instead? Like what?
Sometimes I forget because it was at the bottom of my receipt, and you don't see it. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever works for you, and some of the cards like the Tangerine allow you to pick whatever it is that you want your category for your 2% reward, so you can pick gas for that, and 2% on all your spending might really add up, especially if you're a major commuter.
Can you guesstimate, though, how long it would take to actually be able to get some free gas or even, $10 off. Just a guesstimate. I'm just curious because I honestly was wondering why it was so hard to do this when I thought I was collecting a lot of, kilometers driving and that I would get some free gas eventually. Yeah, I don't know. So if any of you have any tips or tricks on that, let us know. Send us a comment on Facebook. Cindy Geyer comments, WestJet MC with reward program has annual fee but offers annual $99 companion flight.
Oh. So for $99, your companion could go anywhere?
I'm assuming so, yeah. Cindy, give us a little more detail and we'll dive into it.
Yeah.
Victoria Muzichuk, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, what should I be doing with the remaining Aeroplan points I have currently accumulated? What is the timelines I need to redeem them by?
Mid-2020 is the time where you either have to cash them in for rewards or book a trip with them. It seems that you can continue booking Air Canada flights after that time, but it's not clear because you have two parties at the table and only one is saying this and the other one is not saying this. So you have to wait a bit because we don't have all the details yet.
Right.
But it does, I think that anybody who has Aeroplan points should be taking them out, looking at them. If you've lost your password to log in, find another one, create a new password, and seeing how many points you have and how much you can use them for right now, at least use some of them right now, and not waiting till that you have 1 million points and the deadline's staring you in the face.
Right. Bruno Jarnig says, not possible to devalue before. Afterwards, Aeroplan will cut a deal to buy seats on Air Canada, likely at a less value. Your thoughts?
Not clear to me, but if Air Canada is running its own program, it will probably take up a lot of the best flights, and maybe what's left is what will be available for other companies like Aeroplan.
Leo Bernier comments, I'm so tired of reward programs. We've heard this one before. I'm sure you've received emails like that. What about cash back cards instead of travel rewards? Then you can determine where you spend your money.
Yes, cashback cards can be very attractive. It changes from day to day because they all have different offerings. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, which is a government body that tries to educate people, they've got a credit card selector tool where you can go in and say what's important to you. Do you want cash back? Do you want rewards? Do you want insurance? Like a lot of companies offer the rental car insurance when you're going away, or the trip cancellation insurance, or some of those things. So you pick what you like, and then you talk about how much you charge on your cards, and they will actually tell you what's the best card for you. And that's a useful service. It saves hours of your shopping around. Each bank in Canada probably offers 15 different credit cards.
Wow.
So it's a lot to choose from, and each of them's a little different. They will tell you the rates that they charge for interest and for that kind of thing, but a lot of the wrinkles you don't know. The other thing I want to point out is that these cards are not really well regulated. It's not clear who regulates them. The federal government doesn't get involved. The transportation agency, which handles airline complaints, doesn't really get involved. So you're stuck as a consumer saying, why are these companies always changing the rules and what can I do about it? The government really hasn't caught up to this as a new category, and I wish they would.
Leo also comments, and he shares a little bit more about his story, saying Aeroplan actually cheated me several years ago out of 23,000 plus points, he says, for inactivity. He says, I'm disabled and travel was difficult for many years. Thanks for sharing that.
I get a
story.
lot of complaints about inactivity, especially with Aeroplan, because they've been doing it for over a decade.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I think they started in, say, 2003, 2004. If you had a good excuse, they would allow you to get your points back. Then they insisted you had to buy your points back, and the cost of buying them back was exorbitant. And for the longest time, they wouldn't allow anybody to get their points back. Now I notice there's a bit more softening again, and if you have good medical reasons and if you have a doctor's note, you send them all the documentation, they will restore your points.
They will, hey? Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I don't know if Leo, you've tried that, but it might be worth the try if you can even redeem those points back after they're inactive and they've now seem to be gone for him. But I do have to ask, are there reward programs that are, that you would suggest people should definitely buy into? I feel like just the whole idea of it and concept of it is a bit outdated and
it's
really not
very
seeming to work.
complicated, and it should be easier. Like the old reward program was buy 6, get 1 free. Coffee, haircuts, that kind of thing makes a lot of sense. You buy 6, get 1 free. It's really a discount on the cost of your purchases, and it ensures some kind of loyalty. Then they got all complicated. Like Rogers at the beginning had the Better Choice bundle, where you had, a 5% discount for 2 programs, and a 10% for 3, and a 15% for 4. But then they introduced all kinds of new reward programs, and then they had a brand new reward program that they eventually canceled because it wasn't attracting any customers. And I think that's a function of being too complicated and not making people feel like they're actually getting instant gratification, which is what we all want.
Yeah, for sure. Mick Biggins asks, is there an amalgamated loyalty plan or card out there that works across multiple businesses?
I don't know of one.
Yeah.
There used to be a program where you could transfer points from one to the other, but I don't see much about that then either. And I think the companies, it's to their benefit to keep the loyal programs in their program. They don't want them switching around.
Leo says, thanks for the advice, ladies. So glad
Thanks,
to help.
Leo.
And thanks for watching and for sending in your story and your question as well. Anthony Tran asked this, Ellen. What will happen to the points when the program is over? Now, you can still redeem your miles and points for other things, hotel stays and the like, merchandise, but just no longer flights with Air Canada as of 2020, right?
Or flights with Air Canada partners.
Yes.
But AMIA and Aeroplan are going to continue to run. They don't intend to fold their cards and go away. It's not a case of your Aeroplan points expiring. It just means that your choices of what to use your Aeroplan points for may be somewhat different. They may be broader, there may be more partners, there may be some partners that you would like to have that are not there anymore. But according to them, and I talk to them pretty often because of the emails that I get, they're continuing to run the program business as usual with a choice of partners, and you won't have to stop using Aeroplan.
Ellen knows her stuff. I'm sure you can tell from the 40 minutes or so that we've been doing this Facebook Live, and check her out online, Twitter, and all of that. I do have to ask you though, when you're looking at the speculation of it, the hypothetical scenarios that could come out of this announcement from Air Canada and Aeroplan, what do you think Aeroplan will look like in the future for 2020? And what do you think this new Air Canada rewards program will look like?
I would say that Air Canada maybe will try and make it more streamlined for their elite customers, because those are the ones that really keep them in business, the kind that are flying all the time, probably business customers, and making it more attractive for them, because they often felt that the Aeroplan program didn't really reward them more in proportion to their greater flights.
Right, okay.
I don't think that Air Canada will cut out the infrequent flyers, but I think that they feel that those incredibly airborne customers deserve better rewards.
Right.
And they may do away with all that array of taxes, fees, and surcharges that make it so difficult to use your points on flights. There was always the impression, and Aeroplan would say it wasn't the case, but that there weren't enough choices, that the flights would be full, and that there wouldn't be many reward seats available. And they would say, well, you can get a reward seat on every flight, but often there would be just one, and there wouldn't be 2 or 3 if you were traveling with a family. So there has to be a way for customers to feel that there is a way to use your points for flights, because that's I think the main usage for many people. They want to get those flights. Those flights are expensive. They don't want to use them to buy a camera, for example, or a new DVD player. There's so much competition in the stores that the cost of all these merchandise items are going down. And the beef that Air Miles was offering was that not only were you not getting a great deal on the merchandise, but you often had to put up cash in order to use your points for merchandise. So you don't want these points programs diluted. You want to have really good, attractive points, rewards, redemption options. And I hope that Air Canada takes some of that feedback and uses it in a way to offer a more attractive program. I'm sure they will in the first year or two. But here's the thing, as the programs get older and older, they tend to dilute and make their rewards less satisfying. So there's a pressure on you, the customer, to keep shopping around and looking for a better reward program and using your leverage to say, I'm not happy with this program, I'm going to move somewhere else. It's a pain to keep moving around, but if you're going to stay there as a loyal customer, your loyalty is not being rewarded.
And speaking of that, Keith Howard comments via our Marketplace Facebook page. He's been able to purchase a vacuum and a barbecue and lots of other things that he needed, but he could never book a flight with Aeroplan.
Yes, it can be tricky. You have to do it well ahead. You can't do it at the last minute. I have found that as a CIBC AeroGold customer, I actually got 2 offers, or was it 3 offers, for March break for a week where the whole flight was devoted to their customers. So no one else but CIBC AeroGold customers were on this flight. The first year we went to Cancun, and we went to Orlando, and then the third time we went to the Dominican Republic. Oh. By the third year, Aeroplan was doing it separately from CIBC, but that was great because they would send out an email, and if you could book within the next few hours or day, there you would be on a flight with only fellow frequent flyers.
Wow.
And it was actually quite attractive.
Wow, that sounds attractive. You should have, I wish I knew you earlier. You could have called me.
That's right. So for 3 years in a row we did it. We were all set to do it for the 4th year, and then it was all discontinued.
Jeez, I missed the boat, right?
Yeah.
Or I missed the plane. Julie Schnaub says, I'm actually using some of my Aeroplan points for flights this week. I'm very impressed with the service I got. Booked my flights only 14 days and all was great, including wheelchair service.
I'd love to hear where Julie's going.
Julie, if you want to send us a quick shout out before we wrap up this Facebook Live, let us know so we can vicariously live through you. Any final thoughts though? I mean, what, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, what plans are you a part of, and what do you think when people want to shop around now, perhaps, they should be looking out for? What works? I mean, I know it's what works best for them, and it's kind of everybody's individually different, but
I am an Aeroplan customer, and I have used it in the past, and now that I have more time, I'm hoping this year with my husband to take a flight to Australia. And that's the kind of flight that you really want to use points for, if not necessarily for the actual cost of the flight, for the upgrade to a better class where you can get better seats and you can maybe sleep a bit. So I haven't started looking to book yet, but I'm hoping that there will be things available. We're going to do it probably in December, and that's the main one that I'm involved with, but I do use Shoppers Optimum, and I do use PC Financial, and I do like getting free groceries, and it does feel like you get your free groceries pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So they make life a little bit more fun, and there's nothing better than, you know, at the cash register where your bill is $200, and they say that you have $50 in points you can use, and then all of a sudden there you have $150 in groceries. So some of the programs are still doing well. I think that every time there's a scandal involving loyalty points, it doesn't matter whether it's Air Miles or Aeroplan, every single company that offers loyalty plans is affected by it. So they're all going to be trying to do their best for customers after this. I'm not saying there won't be more scandals, and this isn't necessarily a scandal, but it is a disappointment. It is a disappointment not only to Aeroplan customers, but to CIBC and TD and Air American Express that offer those credit cards, and obviously a disappointment to AMIA, which owns Aeroplan. And I think that the industry as a whole is looking to avoid such big disappointments in the future because it hurts all of them. Doesn't just hurt the company that's involved.
That's a great final thought, I think. And thank you so much for all your comments and questions. They've been great, and they were coming in fast and furious. But
keep your eye on all the news media and your communication. Make sure, too, if you have an email address, to change it so that you're getting all the current email from the companies, because you might not have updated it in a while.
And there should be headlines by September when Air Canada actually announces what its new reward program will look like. So all eyes will be
so we have
at
a few more
attention
months
for that.
to hear the details.
Exactly. So enjoy the summer, and then you can figure it out in September what you want to do. And there's 3 years before this actually becomes official. Well, Ellen Roseman, consumer advocate, Toronto Star columnist, joining me. I'm Asha Tomlinson with CBC Marketplace. Thanks for watching.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I do like Starbucks.
Yeah.
You know, I love getting, sometimes I don't like downloading the app.
Right.
So sometimes I'll just keep accumulating and not know how many rewards I
Right.
have. And then I'll be like, can you check? And they're like, you have 3 free drinks. I'm like, done.
Hey.
Everyone drinks on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously better for the smaller items.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the flights, it's a bit
Yeah.
trickier.
And it was nice to hear from the people who are